Hello and welcome. My name is Lexi, and today we are going to be taking a look at the new GUERLAIN holiday collection. So this collection here, we do have a limited edition quad that features this. It's called Glittery Tiger, and that is also what they are calling this particular design here. And you can see the black here. This is like black velvet. This is going to be a little bit lower, so the black velvet is raised. And then this is a multi-chrome sparkle. I think it's actually really pretty. I was not really seeing the promo photos. I wasn't that interested. I personally, I always feel like the animal print, it can either go really luxe or really cheap. And this one from the promo photos, it didn't blow me away. But when you could actually see things up close on the website, and when I got it in person and I saw there was multicolored glitter, I thought it was really pretty. But what really drew my eye is this Meteorites container. So, I mean, look at this. It's just absolutely beautiful. You've got all these different greens and so forth. It looks, like it's ceramic. It's not. It's, it reminds me of like ceramic tiles that go in kind of like a fishtail pattern. But, this is tin, so it's like lacquered tin there. But it is just absolutely beautiful. I mean, I actually already have this color because it is shade 2 in the new formula, which is not the same as shade 2 in the previous formula. They're both light clear, but the new one's warmer. The video on that already, seeing lots of side by side, so I'll link that in the description box in case you missed that. But this is that same shade that has been released as shade 2. So we'll take a look at that. And then there are 3 new lipstick shades and 2 lipstick cases. Let's take a look at the cases real quickly. We have this one here, which is like your green leopard print. This is going to be a velvet material, and the whole thing's velvet. So if you're not familiar with the cases, it does come with a sticker on there to keep it closed, but you do have a dual-sided mirror in there, and you purchase the refills for the lipsticks separately. And this little GUERLAIN logo down at the bottom will kind of clip in here to keep that closed. The other case matches the eyeshadow quad. So this is the Glittery Tiger case. And it's really pretty. Now, if you order from GUERLAIN's website, you can actually get these engraved for free. I chose not to do that this time, but if you do, you can get something written, like basically etched onto the mirror there. So it'll be on the inside of the mirror. And let's go ahead and move on to swatches. We'll take a look at the 3 lipsticks. So out of the 3 lipsticks, we have 1 satin lipstick. So this is our satin in 41 Untamed Garnet. And that's 1 sheer layer of it. And you can see garnet is really an apt description. Online, I feel like this looked a bit lighter than it does when I put it on. It is definitely, it's a plummy garnet. I thought online it looked a little bit more berry, but you can see it definitely has kind of that warmish red mixed with the cooler plum to give you this really pretty garnet shade. It's a gorgeous lip color. You can definitely wear it more sheer like the first layer, or build that up. The other 2 shades are in the velvet formula. So this one here on my lips, this is 521 Flamingo Pink. And of the 3, this one here is my favorite of these. And it reminds me, we'll swatch these later, but it reminds me of a couple other shades that GUERLAIN has. And so we'll take a look at that. One of them, it kind of reminds me of a velvet or matte version of the Cherry Blossom shade from this past spring. And then our last shade here is 234 in the velvet formula, and this is called Roaring Red. And I love GUERLAIN reds. I thought this was going to be a little bit more like one of my favorite, what were they called? The reds that came out a couple of years ago. I have them. We'll swatch them. They're called like luxurious velvets or something like that. But this is actually a bit brighter, and it has kind of this pinky orange vibe to it. So you can definitely see some pink, like some bluish hues in there, but you also see a little bit more of a vibrant tangerine in there. So it's it's a little bit more neutral than I thought. I thought it was going to lean a little bit cooler than it does. It's also a little bit brighter and not as deep as I expected. But I think all three of the shades in this collection are really beautiful. So those are the lipsticks. We'll take a look at the lip swatches. Let's just go ahead and do that now, and then we'll move on to the rest of the items. So the lipsticks are made in France. We have 3.5 grams of product. And as I mentioned, you purchase the refill separately, and it does come with kind of that hard black cap on there. So if you don't want to purchase a case, it's totally functional that way. It's thick enough that it doesn't really fall off easily, and it'll keep your product fresh. But you can also purchase cases. They have these two, which are limited edition for holiday, but they have many other cases, and there are like varying price points. So about $22 to like $38 typically. And occasionally they will have some more expensive ones. Every year they always release this really beautiful, like classic, iconic crystallized case with the Guerlain B logo in some sort of different type of like handmade type of product. Like last year they did embroidery and so forth. So that case is always very expensive. It comes with a shade called 214, which is the Guerlain Classic Red. And we're going to swatch that in comparison with Roaring Red as well. So let's start off. We're just going to kind of go through shades I have. This is one of those luxurious red velvets that I was talking about before. This is shade 1830. Just going to put a little swatch there, but you can see this one is more of a warm orangey red, kind of more of a terracotta red, and really beautiful, but nothing like this shade here. This is another velvet in the permanent line. This is 360. This is going to be more nude, but I did want to kind of compare that here to the flamingo pink. And this is 309, which just came out in the summer collection. So this is also a velvet. And this is one of the shades that I first thought of when I saw this flamingo pink. And you can see that this is a little bit more blue tone and it's a little bit deeper, but they definitely, let me make that swatch a little bit bigger here. Just trying not to run into anything. But you can see that those two shades there are pretty close. So if you have this is again 309 in the velvet formula from summer, you probably don't need flamingo pink. This one here is 770V, which came out, around, I forget, it came out earlier this year, but you can see this is going to be a more blue toned red. It actually is a little bit more fuchsia red. And this is 888 from the permanent line. This one here is going to be a bit more burgundy red. And this is another one from the luxurious velvets, 1925. And this I think is going to be my closest here to Roaring Red. You can see that this one here is actually, it's slightly warmer. It's a little bit brighter. The Roaring Red has a little bit more pink to it, actually, more of like a rosy pink hue to it in comparison to this one. Now, these velvets that came out, the 1925, the ones that were years, they were iconic years in Guerlain's history, and they came out in a velvet version and a satin version of the same shade. This is 880, which is my favorite of the permanent reds from Guerlain. You can see this is kind of your classic blue red. And one more of those luxurious velvets. This is 1870. We're going to put this one right up here. And again, this is going to be a little bit cooler and more burgundy in hue. Now, although this is a velvet, this is one from last year's holiday, number 777. I just wanted to see how the shade of this compares. You can see that this is going to be a brighter, it's a brighter, more pink berry type shade in comparison to the Untamed Garnet. This is a velvet in 910, which is, I believe they call that black red. And you can see that this is very similar. It's a little bit more purple than the Untamed Garnet, but it's almost like the velvet version of this satin lipstick. And this one here is 530. And let's go ahead, we'll put this one right up here. This is going to be a deeper rose shade. You can see it's significantly deeper. It's also going to have more blue in it. This is number 81 in the satin formula, and I believe they call this soft plum. And I wanted to show you how that compared to the garnet, because that's what it made me think of. You can see this is lighter. It's also a little bit more purple, but it's a really beautiful shade. It's a little hard to find now. I'm not sure if they discontinued it, but it's one of my favorites from a long time ago now. And this is shade number 63. This is the Cherry Blossom shade from this past year. And I just wanted to kind of put this one near Flamingo Pink. You can see this is a satin version. It's a little bit deeper. It's also a little bit more purple in it than the Flamingo Pink. But it's a really beautiful shade, and they're kind of close. And then last up, this is 59 in the satin formula. And we're going to go ahead and put this one. We'll just put it here. And you can see how that compares. Again, this is going to be... maybe it's a little bit more rose versus pink. So just to swatch the 521 right next to that so you can see that better. There you go. So let's move on to the Meteorites. So as I mentioned, they've recently reformulated the Meteorites, and they have re-released it in Clair 2. So the packaging is the same. This is Clair or Light 2, and this is the new version. This is the previous version. You can see that the previous version is going to be a little bit cooler in tone. The yellow is lighter, whereas now this is going to be a little bit more of a prominent yellow. This, we also have more of a mint green versus a blue green in here. The pink and the purple are about the same. The white in the new one is more of a cream ivory versus a brighter white. So overall, the new Meteorites are going to be a bit warmer, and you can see that the new holiday ones are exactly the same as the new version for 2 Clair Light. Now, they did previously have other shades in the Meteorites available in the permanent line, and I haven't seen those yet, but based on the fact that they kept the numbering, I am hoping that that means that they will be releasing other shades in the permanent line. So the way the Meteorites come packaged, they do come in a box. And then when you open that up, you have kind of this piece of foam on top. This has a ton of product on it. So, I wouldn't recommend throwing this away until at least you've removed the product. I do get rid of mine after a while, but you can start off by using your brush on this to get just a light dusting. If you want like kind of an intense highlighter, you can use this kind of directly and, kind of really get like an intense highlight from it. So it, definitely don't waste this. And then you've got the Meteorites. Now, the easiest way to use the Meteorites, when you first get them, there's already some like crumbled, broken ones and so forth on the bottom. That's where you're going to have kind of your highlighting powder if you want to use it as a highlight. If you want something a little more subtle and you want kind of that glow all over your skin, then I would recommend using a buffing brush. And you can see in the demo here, I'm using the Sonia G. This is the Face One, which is now called the Buffer Pro. And, I like to run my brush over those pearls in the beginning, and I don't dip down all the way to the bottom unless I'm using that as a specific highlighter. And, once you use up all that powder, obviously, shake them up a bit, you'll break some more. So overall, I really like the Meteorites buffed into the skin. I think they give you this really beautiful pearly sheen to your skin, kind of like a pearly glow. And depending on how much product you use, you can definitely, make it more subtle or more impactful, but it does give you a bit of a blur. And I think it just kind of brings your whole look together. So I personally have always loved Guerlain Meteorites. I really love to use them during the colder months in particular. I don't know why that is, but it does seem to just kind of bring my whole look together more. And I also think that it really helps kind of blur the lines of, blush and bronzer and things like that as well. So it just looks kind of like a color wash. And so I really love the product itself. Personally, I do prefer the older Clair 2 shade versus the new one. But, I think they're a great product. Quality wise, there's no discernible difference between the new version and the old version. So obviously the color has changed a little bit and the ingredients have changed a little bit, but you know, they seem to be equally as effective and good. But I would definitely recommend using a buffing brush to get the most out of the Meteorites. So if you use like a fluffy brush, you're really not going to see any impact, and it's kind of like, well, why did I even use this? And you can definitely use these as a highlighter as well. But personally for me, I think these work best buffed into the skin in a small amount to give you kind of that glowy blur. So let me go ahead and kind of just show you, you know, these swatched, and you can see here, this is the powder from the bottom. I think that's what's going to show up the most, but you can see that it turns into kind of this warm, kind of a golden beige shimmery shade here. And that's kind of what you're getting. It's like candlelit glow. So I feel like that's what the new number 2 shade really gives you versus more of that brightening effect that we had previously. I think it's a beautiful shade, but it's definitely a bit warmer. Now, as for the holiday Meteorites, they're calling this Meteorites Fierce Glow. We have 22 grams of product. There's a 1-year shelf life on here, and these are made in France. Now, although they have given this a holiday name, if you look at the packaging, it does say that it is the shade 2 Clear Light, and there is no difference between that and the permanent one. There doesn't seem to be any additional shimmer or anything like that. There is definitely shimmer in the Meteorites in both versions. So let's go ahead and move on to the eyeshadow palette. And again, I have to say, I do really like the packaging on here. I didn't think I would appreciate that so much. Now, one thing I did want to note is that this packaging, you know, it's not refillable. So the Guerlain quads aren't refillable. So that is something I wish they would do, at least for you know, any sort of decorative packaging. So let's go ahead and swatch these. We have 2, you know, metallic satin shades, starting with this green here, which is a beautiful rich green. And one of the things I'd like to draw your attention to is the fact that we don't have any sort of gray or black undertone or base to it. It is a pure green, and we do have a bit of a satin finish to it. It goes on smoothly and beautifully. Then we have this matte plum shade here. It is a very pretty shade. Now, if you're familiar with the Guerlain quads in their permanent line, they have a slightly different, more grippy texture. This is more of just a regular matte shadow. So just something to note there. And that's what happened with their summer quad as well. Then we have this metallic yellow. You know, I hesitate to call it gold because it's really just more yellow than gold. And this one, again, you know, it's going to be satin like the green. It's pure color, no discernible colored base to it, but it is a little bit more sheer than the green. So just something to note. And then our last shade here, this is a satin and it is a soft peach. So these are the 4 shades in here. Let's go ahead and move on to the eye swatches. Now, this palette, by the way, we do have 4 shades. They're 2.2 grams each. It's made in France. We have a 6-month shelf life. And again, this color story is 879 Glittery Tiger, which is limited edition. It does come with 2 utensils in there. And as you're looking at the eye swatches, I did want to note these brushes that I'm using here for all of the demos. You know, Miss Siobhan on Instagram, she actually recommended this new Fude shop to me. And it is called Fude Bobo or Bobo Do. And I'll leave that linked down below. But I placed an order for some brushes there. She's got some really beautiful brushes, you know, like collectible pieces. And there's actually a promotion right now for the grand opening. My order came super quickly. It was very well packaged. And she actually recognized my name on the order slip from Instagram or YouTube, I'm not sure which. But she sent me the brushes I'm using here today, you know, as a gift with my order. And so I definitely want to say thank you, but I will talk about these brushes after the demos here as well. But I did want to recommend the shop because, you know, particularly if you are looking for some, you know, brushes that have been a little bit harder to find and so forth. Because it's a brand new shop, you might have a little bit easier time finding some of those. She's got some really elegant brushes there. She also has some other ones. I'll show you what I picked up. And as for the demos here, you can see that the green went on super smoothly, very pigmented, very easy to build up. You could also shear this one out nicely. It's a great formula. The you know, kind of plum shade here, that matte, the first time I applied it, you can see it really was kind of spotty and patchy. It was attaching to something on my lid. I'm not sure what it was because I didn't have anything on my lid. So it must have been some like dry skin or something. So it was really accentuating that. And I didn't like that. So I did redo that one. And, you know, it did go on much more smoothly then. However, it is a pigmented matte. And if your layering is not completely even all throughout, you can see a bit of patchiness. So the matte shade I think is okay, but it's nothing special, you know. Honestly, the formulas for these shadows in general are, you know, they're not any particularly unique formula, but the shimmers and satins, you know, they are very nice formula. The matte's okay. And then the yellow shade, I think that one's nice. I would say that the green is just a little bit smoother than the yellow. The yellow's a little bit more, it's a little drier, a little bit more powdery. So just something to note. But in the demo that I have for today's eye look, I actually used it wet as eyeliner, and it's a great eyeliner shade. It's really impactful. And, you know, these shades do go on very well wet, the shimmer shades. Then this peachy shade, it's basically the same as the yellow in formula. I feel like the green one is more satin, and these two are both a little bit more powdery than the green one, but it goes on nicely. It blends out well. And I think it's a great shade in here to help subdue some of the deeper shades and kind of blend and buff things in. And it's a really nice highlighter shade. So overall, I would have to say that this color story kind of scared me. You know, I wasn't really sure how I wanted to use it, but once I applied that green, I knew that this palette for me is all about that green. That green is gorgeous. I really love the green shade in here. The plum shade I think is okay, but is not a favorite. I do like the color being in here, but I wish that the formula of this matte was perhaps a little bit creamier than it is. And then the yellow and the peach, they're nice. I prefer the peach. The yellow, you know, I think is definitely going to look striking on some people. I can think of some beautiful looks for some people with warmer skin tones than what I have. But overall, you know, it's kind of a daunting color story, but I think it actually works, and you can come up with some really beautiful shades. This palette is not going to be for those who are looking for a soft neutral eye look for sure. You know, unless you're planning on using the peach on its own, you know, there's really no way to go incredibly soft and neutral with this. I think it's a really beautiful quad for the holidays or even just for fun. So overall, I'd have to say that the quad is a nice product here as well. Now, I don't actually have any comparisons for this quad because I don't have anything with similar color stories. Yeah, you can kind of like go through things, and you can definitely find things similar to this peach and possibly even the yellow. I don't have a green quite like this because, again, this is missing that deeper base. And the berry plum shade, you know, you can probably find that. You know, the first thing that comes to mind is the Natasha Denona Midi Retro palette and so forth. So, you know, you can find similar shades, but you're going in a whole bunch of different places to get those. So I think, you know, if you're looking for something like this, you know, with this type of color story, you probably don't want to go all over the place. So overall thoughts on this collection. I actually think the collection is really pretty. I wasn't sure how much I would like it originally, but I do really enjoy it. I love this flamingo pink lip color. I really like all three of them, but if I had to pick one, it'd be the flamingo pink. Following that, the roaring red, and then the untamed garnet. The untamed garnet is a gorgeous shade, but it's definitely a lot deeper on me than I expected it to be. So that's kind of why it's last, but it's still absolutely beautiful. And I love the Rouge G Satin formula. The Meteorites, honestly, I purchased that for the packaging. Since I have two of the same color, I'm giving one to a friend who, I talked to her about that. So she's going to take one of those so I don't have duplicates. But I just really wanted to have that green packaging there. And yeah, the eyeshadow quad, it impressed me a lot more than I thought it would. And I think it's a really fun addition. Do I think it's a must-have? I think it depends kind of what kinds of colors you like to go for and so forth. But if I had to pick anything from this collection, honestly, for me, it's that Meteorites packaging. And then I think this glittery tiger case on either the eyeshadow palette or the lipstick are absolutely gorgeous. So, my number 2 choice then would be this case with the flamingo pink lipstick. Followed by the quad. So, that's kind of how I have ranked them as my personal favorites. I'd love to know what your thoughts are if you're trying anything from this collection. Right now, it is currently available at the GUERLAIN US website, but it will be coming to other retailers very soon. And just a brief overview of the brushes, because I did want to show these off. And you can see we've got kind of a short handle. And these here are actually a collaboration. They're Bobo Chikuhodo. So she had a collaboration with Chikuhodo creating these brushes. And these are actually a Weasel and Psycho mix. So they are a little bit stiffer. This shader brush, which I used for the, the demos, the eye swatches, this puts things on beautifully and it is stiff enough that you're not making a powdery mess anywhere. This is what I use for the liner. It's the SO2. And I thought, it does a really nice job. So let me just show you, you can see how stiff that is. And, it's just soft enough that it's comfortable to use, but it's stiff enough that you're not making a mess. The shader, you can see, you don't have bristles flaying all around. It's going to put your color where you want it. And you can use this one wet. The crease brush here, this is the S01. This is pretty stiff as well. So this is actually, I really liked using this with that burgundy shade in the crease because I could really be precise with where I wanted it and kind of buff that out. So I thought this actually was a very effective crease brush, but I would typically pair this with a fluffier crease brush that has a little bit more movement to blend out shades as well. So I have to say these are really nice brushes. And then slightly different handle. You can see that these are more tapered, whereas this is gonna be rounded. This is another collaboration. This is Bobo and 90. And these are gray squirrel hair. And I used this during today's eye look. You can see it's a soft shader. And you could see that using the Weasel Psycho mix versus the gray squirrel, the color went on just as pigmented with both applications, which shows you how nice the Guerlain eyeshadow is too. It's not hard to pick up. So I have to say, I really like this. I love the sparkles in the handle too. So, and then this is just a really nice pencil brush that you can use for lower lash line, inner corner, and so forth, and very, very soft. So I thought these were great brushes. I also picked up a whole bunch of other brushes like these, which I've been using these in a couple of videos. I'm still testing them, but I will have them in a video soon. But they're called number 8, which I believe is made by Hakuhodo. And so these are also a blended mix. So we'll talk about those in another video. Thank you so much to Fude Bobo. Thank you so much to Fude Bobo for sending me those brushes along with my order. And definitely check out her shop and the grand opening promo that's going on because it can save you, like 10%. So definitely worth looking into. And I hope this was helpful. I'd love to know your thoughts on the Guerlain holiday line. So let me know what you think, and I will see you very soon. Have a wonderful day, and thanks for watching.